You did not withdraw from the world because something is wrong with you. You withdrew because something is wrong with the deal. Every social interaction is a transaction, and you have been hemorrhaging value at every table you sit down at. The modern world pathologizes your solitude. It calls you antisocial. It calls you depressed. It hands you articles about the dangers of loneliness and nudges you back toward the noise. Arthur Schopenhauer would burn those articles. He understood a truth so uncomfortable that society has spent 2 centuries trying to bury it. The intelligent mind does not avoid people because it fears connection. It avoids people because most connection is a downgrade. Think about the last time you left a social gathering early, not because you were tired, because you were starving. You walked in looking for a single real conversation, something with texture, something with weight, and instead you got 3 hours of recycled opinions, performative laughter, and the same hollow script everyone reads from. How's work? Did you see that show? Can you believe the weather? You smiled, you nodded, you played the part. And the entire time, a quiet voice inside your skull was screaming, I am wasting the only resource I cannot get back. That voice is not dysfunction. That voice is your intelligence doing exactly what it was designed to do, running a cost-benefit analysis on your own life and discovering that the margins on most human interaction are catastrophic. You are spending hours of irreplaceable mental energy to receive nothing in return. Not insight, not challenge, not growth, just noise dressed in social obligation. And you have been trained since childhood to believe that tolerating this noise is a moral duty, that showing up is kindness, that enduring the banal is maturity. Schopenhauer saw through this fiction entirely. He wrote that a man can be himself only so long as he is alone. The moment he walks into society, he lives under siege, not from enemies, from expectations. The expectation to simplify, the expectation to perform, the expectation to sand down every sharp edge of your mind until it is smooth enough to be palatable to people who are threatened by depth. You do not walk into a room. You walk into a negotiation where the price of entry is a piece of your identity. And here is the part that will reframe every guilty evening you have spent alone, every declined invitation, every time you chose a book over a bar. You are not losing anything by stepping away. You are recovering something that was being stolen from you in plain sight. Schopenhauer called it the eternal wellspring. Your inner life, your capacity for thought, for reflection, for building something inside your own mind that the noise of the world could never construct for you. He observed that ordinary people treat solitude as a prison. The intelligent mind treats it as a laboratory. And the difference between those 2 experiences is the difference between a person who needs people to fill a void and a person who needs space to build a world. Psychology gives us the language for this now. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's research on flow states revealed that the deepest human fulfillment occurs not in social bonding, but in solitary absorption. The painter alone in her studio, the writer locked in a room with nothing but an idea and the discipline to chase it, the programmer lost in a problem at 3 in the morning. Flow requires uninterrupted cognitive immersion. It requires the complete absence of social performance. Every time your phone buzzes with a group chat, every time someone asks you to just come out for one drink, they are reaching into your cockpit mid-flight and yanking the controls. They are not inviting you into their world. They are pulling you out of yours, but the guilt persists. Because the world has built an entire moral architecture around the idea that being alone is a failure state. Look at the language: loner, recluse, hermit, shut-in. Every word for a person who prefers their own company carries the stench of pathology. Meanwhile, the person who spends 7 nights a week filling the silence with shallow company is called social. They are called healthy. They are called well-adjusted. The crowd rewards the crowd. The system celebrates the people who feed the system. And anyone who steps outside the loop is diagnosed as broken. Schopenhauer recognized this as the tyranny of the herd. He wrote that the majority of human beings are not individuals at all. They are echoes. They do not think. They absorb. They pick up opinions like static cling, walking through crowds and collecting whatever sticks. Then they repeat it with conviction and call it a personality. When you sit across from someone at dinner and feel that sinking emptiness, that flatness, it is because you are not speaking with a person. You are speaking with a compilation, a mood board of borrowed ideas held together by social momentum. This is why small talk physically hurts you. It is not shyness. It is not introversion, though that word gets thrown at you like a diagnosis. It is pattern recognition. Your brain operates at a certain resolution. It is looking for signal. Small talk is pure noise. When you are forced to participate in it, your mind does what any sophisticated system does when flooded with junk data. It starts to shut down. You feel drained. You feel foggy. You feel like you lost an entire afternoon, even though you only spent 40 minutes at a lunch you did not want to attend. You did not lose an afternoon. You lost processing power. Your cognitive resources were hijacked by an interaction that gave nothing back. Robin Dunbar's research on social networks found that the human brain can maintain approximately 150 stable relationships. But Dunbar's number hides a more brutal truth inside it. Of those 150, most people have at best 5 meaningful connections. 5. The rest are acquaintances, obligations, and leftover friendships running on the fumes of shared history. You already know this intuitively. You could lose contact with 90% of the people in your life tomorrow and feel absolutely nothing. Some of you would feel lighter. That is not cruelty. That is clarity. Schopenhauer lived this clarity with ruthless precision. He kept almost no close relationships. He dined alone. He walked alone. He worked alone. And he produced a body of philosophical work so profound that it influenced Nietzsche, Freud, Wittgenstein, and Einstein. His solitude was not a wound. It was infrastructure. He was not avoiding life. He was building a life that did not require an audience to feel real. And this is the fracture point between you and the social world. You do not need witnesses to your existence. Most people do. Most people experience reality only when it is reflected back at them by another pair of eyes. They post a photo to feel the trip. They share an opinion to feel the thought. They announce a goal to feel the ambition. Without the mirror, they are not sure any of it happened. You are different. You experience reality in the first person. You do not need the echo. And this makes you terrifying to the people who live inside the echo chamber because your independence is an implicit accusation. Every time you choose to stay home, every time you decline the invitation, every time you sit in silence while they scramble to fill it, you are holding up evidence that their entire social architecture might be built on sand. They will punish you for this, not overtly, socially. They will call you difficult. They will say you think you are better than everyone. They will frame your boundaries as rejection and your selectiveness as arrogance. Schopenhauer was called the philosopher of pessimism. He was called bitter, lonely, and miserable. Read his actual work. He was none of those things. He was precise. He simply refused to pretend that the emperor was wearing clothes, and the court could never forgive him for it, so they will construct a story about you. In your absence, they will decide what your solitude means. Let them. Their interpretation is built on the same shallow processing that made their company unbearable in the first place. Why would you trust the analysis of a mind that cannot understand the subject? A person who cannot tolerate silence is not qualified to judge the person who has mastered it. But let us cut into the part of this that actually terrifies you. It is not the judgment, it is not the labels, it is the fear that they might be right. That maybe you are not choosing solitude. Maybe you are hiding. Maybe the reason you avoid people is not intelligence, but cowardice. Maybe you are afraid of being truly seen. Sit with that for a moment, because if you are honest, there is a thread of truth in it. The intelligent mind is not only repelled by shallow interaction, it is also afraid of deep interaction, because deep interaction requires vulnerability. It requires you to lower the walls that your intellect builds so carefully. It requires you to be wrong, to be messy, to be human in front of another human being. And you have spent so long weaponizing your mind as a shield that you have forgotten how to put it down. Schopenhauer struggled with this himself. He craved connection. He fell in love. He pursued relationships. And he was consistently devastated by the collision between his inner world and the outer reality of other people. His porcupine dilemma was not an abstract thought experiment. It was autobiography. The porcupines huddle together for warmth, but prick each other with their quills. They are trapped between the cold of isolation and the pain of intimacy. Schopenhauer was not telling you to choose the cold. He was telling you to find the exact distance where you get warmth without bleeding. This is the part the self-help industry will never sell you, because there is no product in nuance. The answer is not total isolation. The answer is not forced socialization. The answer is radical selectivity. You do not need more friends. You need fewer, better ones. You do not need to attend more gatherings. You need to find the one room where you do not have to translate yourself into a simpler language just to be understood. Schopenhauer described intellectual companionship as the rarest and most valuable luxury in human life. Two minds that can operate at the same altitude, that can handle ambiguity without needing to flatten it, that can sit in silence without anxiety. He said most people are like clocks set to different times. They will never agree, and forcing synchronization only damages the mechanism. Your job is not to fix every misaligned clock. Your job is to find the one or two that already match your rhythm, and to stop apologizing for ignoring the rest. But you must be honest about what you are protecting. Because there is a version of solitude that is generative, and there is a version that is a tomb. Generative solitude produces. You read, you write, you build. You think with a clarity that is impossible in the presence of other people's noise. The hours alone translate into work, into insight, into progress you can measure. That solitude is sacred. Protect it with everything you have. Then there is the other kind, the kind where you sit in your room and refresh the same 4 apps. The kind where you avoid people not because you are building something, but because you are afraid of something. The kind where your solitude does not feel like freedom, but like a waiting room you cannot leave. If that is your solitude, you are not practicing Schopenhauer's philosophy. You are using it as anesthetic. And you need to be honest enough with yourself to recognize the difference. The intelligent mind has a unique talent for building beautiful prisons. You can construct an entire philosophical framework to justify your retreat from the world. You can cite every thinker in this video. You can wrap your fear in the language of wisdom and make it sound like a choice. Schopenhauer himself may have done this. His philosophy gives you permission to withdraw. But permission is not a prescription. The question is not whether you can justify your solitude. You can. The question is whether your solitude is making you sharper or softer, whether the fortress is protecting a working mind or a hiding one. Here is the test. When you are alone and the silence settles and there is nothing left to distract you, what do you feel? If you feel relief, you are in the right place. You have found the laboratory. You are doing the work that requires the absence of noise. But if you feel dread, if the silence is not peaceful but loud, if the aloneness does not feel chosen but imposed, then your solitude has become a cell. And no amount of Schopenhauer will turn a cell into a sanctuary. The truly intelligent mind does not flee from people permanently. It curates ruthlessly. It understands that most social interaction is a net loss. It accepts this without bitterness, without superiority, without the need to announce it. It simply allocates its energy with the precision of a surgeon. It gives nothing to the transactions that return nothing, and it pours everything into the 2 or 3 connections that operate at the right frequency. Schopenhauer spent his evenings walking his poodle through the streets of Frankfurt, dining alone at the same restaurant, reading by candlelight in his apartment. He was not miserable. He had simply solved the equation that most people spend their entire lives failing to balance. He found the exact distance from the world that allowed him to see it clearly without being consumed by it. He built a life that did not require applause. He built a mind that did not require applause. He built a mind that did not require agreement. That is the real goal. Not to hate people, not to become a hermit, not to build the philosophy of contempt dressed as wisdom. The goal is to become so complete inside yourself that your presence in the world is a choice, never a need. You show up when it adds to your life. You leave when it subtracts. And you never again confuse being alone with being empty. You clicked on this video because you have been carrying guilt. Guilt for the dinners you skipped. Guilt for the calls you did not return. Guilt for the creeping suspicion that you would rather be alone with your thoughts than surrounded by people who will never understand them. Schopenhauer would tell you to put that guilt down. It does not belong to you. It was handed to you by a world that profits from your participation and panics at your absence. Your solitude is not a symptom, it is a skill. The ability to be alone without being lonely, to think without being interrupted, to choose depth over frequency, that is not a deficit. That is the rarest form of wealth in a world that has become terrified of silence. Keep the door closed, but make sure it is a door, not a wall. A door you can open when someone worth opening it for finally knocks.